Yeah! Yeah, YouTube! Yeah, we gonna do it big! Y'all wanna learn something about some mixing and mastering, huh? I got something for you. Today, this is the third installment of Deloitte Productions. Right now, I'm gonna be talking to you about how I mix the guitars and the piano on Sandra Small's Believe. So be on the lookout for that when that comes out. And yeah, alright, here we go. I'm gonna get right up in it. So, just give you a little taste. This is what the whole thing sounds like.
Every day's a blessing not to be taken for granted. Every day's a brand new way to see. Every day's a way to see the light. Yeah, yeah.
So you get the point. It's a good song. Good mix, good singing, good everything. So right now let me give you a little bit of a sample of what the guitars sound like alone. Let's get rid of this reverb and all this stuff. Alright. Here we go. These are the guitars after everything I did. So you see there's a little bit of bleed and stuff going on in there. And, you know, in the mix you can't really tell so much because everything is all together. But I'm going to show you what I did on each individual guitar. So this right here is actually Sandra's guitar. So first thing I did with this was put a little bit of EQ on it. Because like I was saying, it was bleeding a lot. Like a lot of the bass was on it and a lot of the cymbals, and it was just a lot of stuff was on it. So this is what it sounded like before the EQ. So you hear the drums and everything almost sound like a room mic. So with the EQ on it. So you see I cut down a lot. So what I did there was I put a high pass filter on it up to 163 hertz and cut off a lot of the bass, and it got rid of a lot of the garbage down there and the guitar that was just getting in the way of the bass and the bass drum. So that opens up the track a lot. Then I put a high pass filter on it at 6,655 hertz. I did that so that I can get rid of all the cymbals and all that stuff. Normally on the guitar, I don't think you would normally do that, and you know, in order to make the guitar sound good by itself. But in this context, if I had left it there, then it would have been really bad with the cymbals. It would have just been too hot, and the drums would have just been all over. It just would have been a mess. So I put a high pass filter on it. And then I found a sweet spot for the guitar where I thought the guitar sounded the best, and I tried to bring that out. So what was that? I went to about 960 hertz, and I boosted that about 5-6 dB just so that I can get that guitar pumping. And so you can get a taste of what that sounds like. So you know, you get the point there. Then the next thing I did was I put a compressor on it. So with the compressor, I made the attack pretty slow. I put it to 30 milliseconds and the release was pretty quick at 82 milliseconds. So I did it long like that so you could hear the attack of the guitar, because she's mostly playing rhythm guitar right there. And you know, you want to hear the strumming and everything. So that's why I did that, and that sounds like this. See, those attacks are really coming strong and the sustains are coming down a little bit. And yeah, so that's why I did that. And it actually, for me, it wasn't strong enough sometimes. It wasn't cutting through the attacks enough. So I put a transient shaper on it. So without the transient shaper, which is cool, but it wasn't cutting through the mix enough, so you couldn't really hear it. So I put the transient shaper on it, and I put the attack up 2 dB, and it sounds like this. Those attacks are really cutting through. So that's Sandra's guitar, and I actually panned that about 50% to the right so I could separate the two guitars. Then what I did is here's the other guitar, and he's playing more lines. So same basic thing. I put EQ and compression on. Those are your basic tools of any mix, is EQ and compression. So once you master those, you can pretty much mix anything, and it'll sound great. Okay. So first thing was EQ. I put a high pass filter on from up to 100, about 100 hertz, and then I did a boost at 845 hertz. Because I thought that was one of the sweet spots of his guitar. It sounded really good, so I boosted it. And then I boosted around 6,600 hertz. Because it was like the high end of his guitar, and it made it so it cut through real good and just gave a resonance to the guitar. Just, just opened it up some. So, that's what we did with that. So this is what it sounded like before the EQ. Now after the EQ. Sounds good, right? It made it a little brighter. I brought it out of the track. It just made it a breathier sound, okay? Then we put a little bit of compression on it. This one I didn't make the attack as long. It just didn't need it. It sounded good when you just had a medium kind of attack on it. And yeah, so we just compressed it, just kind of even out the track a little bit. So that's what this sounds like. Now without it. With it. See, it tamed some of those peaks, right? So then what I did on his guitar, because I thought it could use a little bit more grunge, I put the magic knob on it, that saturation knob, the one from the other videos I told you. You just turn it and everything just sounds better. Well, it worked on his guitar, so that's what we did. So without it, it sounds like this. Now with it. Good. It just kind of made it a little more better, okay? So that's the guitars. Now, oh wait, no, there's more. So also what I did, I bust these guitars over to this bus track, okay? And on this track, I put, let's see here. Because the tracks were panned, this is now a stereo track together, okay? So what I did, I used Isotope's equalizer, and I used a little mid-side EQ on it. So on the mids, I didn't really do much, but I noticed that on the sides, some of the mud in the lower part of the lower frequencies on the guitar was kind of muddying up the whole track. So on the sides, I did a cut, a low shelf cut at 276 hertz, just about like 1.5 dB. And that really helped clear up the track a lot. And then I did a boost at 4,700 hertz, about 2 dB, and that really opened up the guitars and just made it sound wider. So without this, sounds like this. With it, big difference, right? So then, after all of that, after all of that, I widened it. So then I took it, this is Isotope Stereo Imager. And with this is a really cool plugin, because what it does is it breaks the sound up into different frequencies. You have 4 bands on here, and you can widen each individual band, which is really cool because you want to keep the mud away from the sides when you're doing stereo mixing. Okay, so I took the mids and I spread that out about 25%. Then I took the high mids and I spread those out about 37%. And then I did the high frequencies. I spread those about 50%. So without this, it sounds like this. So with it, super wide. It's like perfect for this track. It fits it right in. Okay. So then from there, I had to make it work with the piano. So here's the piano. Okay, that's what it sounded like after all the stuff we did to it. So first thing I did, like everything else, EQ and compression. EQ and compression. EQ and compression. Those are the most important tools of mixing, okay? Remember that. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So I put a low pass filter on it, going up to 100 hertz, because if I hadn't said it before, you want to low pass everything that's not a kick drum or bass. Sometimes you do put, sometimes you do put high pass filters on the low frequency instruments like bass drum or kick drum, depending on how low, you want to get off some of the rumble kind of stuff sometimes. But on all the other stuff, you put a high pass filter on everything that's not a kick drum or bass drum, because anything that's down in that frequency range that's not one of those is getting in the way of the kick drum or the bass drum, or the kick drum or the bass. It's just going to make it so that they can't really come through as much. And it's not even a lot of information down there on the instruments, but it muddies stuff up. So I put that high pass filter on there, and then I put a boost at 5,000 hertz. So without it, alright, with it, just brightens it up a little bit, it helps out a little bit. And then I put a little bit of compression on it just to kind of even it out. Alright, and I even put a limiter on it just because this thing was peaking a lot. So I just evened it out a little bit. And this is Isotope Alloy's limiter. It's a very good limiter. See, it had peaked. That one peak just was shooting out. It was crazy, even after the compression. Alright, so from there, what I did was I put Sonar channel tools on there. Basically, this is a stereo widener. It's a stereo widener that comes with Sonar. And it's a pretty good one. So without this, let me turn it back on. Without this, it sounds like this. With it, very wide. Then what I noticed with that, again, it had too much information, low frequency information on the outside of the mix. It was muddying up the mix. So again, I used Isotope's equalizer, the Ozone's equalizer. I did the mid-side equalization. So on the sides, I put low shelf, but I put a cut at 240 hertz, about 1.5 dB, and that cleared the whole thing up. So without it, with it, sounds great, right? Alright, so that's how I mix the piano and the guitars. So I'm gonna let you listen to the whole track as a whole, and you know, you can be the judge of whether or not you enjoy it. So check out more videos. We got more videos coming up on Deloitte Productions, and you know, we just helping you out, giving my perspective on how I mix stuff and trying to help cats get better, because I'm trying to get better too. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, like the video, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.